Here are top tips for married couples who are in business together. Number one, don't say anything that you are going to regret. This is something that Jason actually taught me very early in our relationship, and it is something that has been a guiding principle for us. We make sure, no matter how frustrated we are in a certain situation, especially dealing with technology, we both get very frustrated when we're dealing with technology, or whatever makes you feel out of control or angry, whatever that scenario is for you, the best thing that we've ever made the decision about is in those scenarios, don't say anything that will hurt the relationship. So that's something that I think we both have made a conscious decision about. And no matter how we're feeling, we make a point to never react in a way that will put our partner down and verbally say something that we can't take back.
Yeah, it's the power of the tongue for us. We always want to make sure that we're lifting each other up. When we have disagreements, we realize that's my best friend, that's my life partner. This is who I've chosen for my entire life. And for us to say something, the power of the tongue is something that can leave a lasting impression forever and do forever damage. You can always say I'm sorry, you can always try to get past it, but having that gauge of saying I am never starting out in the beginning in business, especially, but with your relationship, which is more important than your business, always having that gauge set to, if I'm about to say something out of anger or something that will leave a lasting impression, then it's best to walk away from the scenario. Do not say those things that cannot be taken back. That's one of our golden rules, and we stick by it. And we've done pretty well so far for 8 years. And we have this actually on our refrigerator so that we remember it. And it is that the my wife gets my best, the world gets the rest. So our tip number 2 is my spouse gets my best, the world gets the rest. And it's a rule that we live by, knowing and understanding that we are it for each other. Like, that's our fallback position. And we might have to be on a sales call. We might be at a networking event. We might be out with friends. We might be wherever we are. Yes, we're in business together, but that's my life partner. And and she's always going to get my best. And that's been a rule that served us really, really well in 8 years of marriage.
I love that. And, we're not here to be marriage counselors. I don't think we're qualified to do anything like that. And we've always said we are not the type of people to want to try to give marriage advice to other people. But it is a question we get a lot, is how do we, as married couples, work in business together? It was actually before we got married, I had people in my life say you shouldn't get into business with someone that you're married to or that you're a relative with. And I think there's different scenarios when you're a relative with someone, but when you're married to someone, it's a different scenario as well. So it's just things we learned and we wanted to share with you, and we hope it helps. I read in a book recently that men want to be respected and women want to be loved. And that coincides with the scripture in the Bible that the Lord commands for married couples. And it says for men to love their wives as they love themselves, and for women to respect their husbands. And that really caught my attention because it coincides with what I have been learning about being a wife to an amazing husband. But as I read these books on how to be a good wife and a good partner, I've learned a lot how men really want to know that their partner, their wife, respects them. And it's really important, I think, for women to convey that. So from a personal perspective, as a woman who is in business with her husband, I have learned that it's in all aspects of our marriage, it's important for me to make sure that I'm conveying to him how much I respect him. But I also just want to make the point to never disrespect him in a business scenario either. There might be issues in business that we disagree with each other on, or we have different approaches for something on, but there never has to be any sort of feedback from me that comes across like I'm disrespecting him. And we make sure to give each other feedback in a way that shows that he loves me, and for me to him, that I respect him and I love him. So that's one of our biggest tips, I think. And it's been very fruitful for our marriage and being in business together.
Yeah, I love that. And the idea between respected and being loved. I mean, I would like to talk, just talking to my brothers, because I can't come at it from the feminine perspective, but talking to my brothers, if you're in business with your wife, she's not a dude, and that's one of the key components. She's not a guy, and expecting them to step in and make guy decisions is what causes the conflict because a woman's power is in her feminine, a man's power is in their masculine. And when you flip those roles, you get into a little bit of trouble, especially when it comes to business. So make those hard decisions. Don't treat her like she's a man, even though she might be a badass business partner. She's still not a man. And there is a role for a masculine, for a man in that relationship, and there's a powerful role, which is what I was missing my entire life until I met Emily. I was missing that powerful feminine role. And there's a place for both of them. And when they work together, it's incredibly powerful. Also, the other thing that I would say is never use your wife as a prop. Doesn't look good. It's completely fake. It comes across as fake, and that does a lot of damage to your brand. Work on your relationship first, because that should be a genuine outpouring of who you are as a couple. That should be a genuine outpouring for whatever your brand is and what it's representing, whether it's in service to other people or whether it's a prop to be some sort of social media gimmick. And people can tell the difference, especially these days. Be genuine and just realize it's very simple when you realize that men, all we want to do is be respected, and women, all they want is love, and we give that to each other. It makes for a powerhouse example of a couple being married and being able to run both sides, successful relationship and successful business.
I love how you brought up not to use your wife as a prop because I see that so much on social media, but I also kind of see a variation of it too, where I see men talking about how they're in business with their wife or their girlfriend and the men are talking about how they're the CEO of the business and because in my opinion it seems a little apparent that they're positioning themselves as CEO but their wife or girlfriend is doing literally all the work of the business. And I've seen that happen where they basically make the woman do the grunt work and then the men crown themselves with the CEO title. And it is, I can't imagine how exhausting that would be. Like, unless, there's different traits in business that different people carry. And we talk about that with in the B2X podcast and the B2X Studio podcast and things like that. And you can learn more about, the different manager, leader, artist, entrepreneur types through Jason's content. But I've seen a lot of just kind of using women to kind of further the man's own goals. And to me, that's a big red flag. So you bring up a good point there.
Not genuine, and it stands out like a mile. No matter what you think how it's coming across, don't do it. Don't use your wife as a prop, and please don't treat her as a dude. And and for the wife, don't treat your man like he's one of your girlfriends either. It's all a balance, and getting it right. It's hard enough to be in business, much less be in business with your partner when you're out of alignment. It has been the biggest blessing for me to be in business with a woman who I'm in complete and total alignment with. And just by happenstance, she's an amazing businesswoman. I love business. So it's my sport. And we have that in common. We're able to utilize that to be able to go out and crush goals. Tip number 4 is constant communication. This may seem a little bit like old school advice. It might seem a little bit fortune cookie-ish. It might seem very, very simple, but there's so much that happens when a couple doesn't communicate. There's so many things. We call in our family, we call it speaking the unspoken. Say the difficult things so that you can have the conversations that need to be had so that you can get to the other side and continue crushing, right? We talk about in our family a lot, what's the end game that we're getting to? We understand that if we were the people, if we were making the right decisions, if we had all of the right things in alignment, we would already have that end game. And so there's some shifting that has to happen between where we are today and that end game. And that means I've got to grow, she's got to grow, we've got to communicate. We're going to do some things that are going to fail, we're going to do some things that are going to be awesome, and there's going to be some miscommunications along the way. Constant communication takes out of the equation any doubt. Like, doubt is the greatest tool of the devil, in my opinion. And it takes that doubt off the table, because I know she's speaking to me everything that's on her mind. I'm speaking to her everything that's on my mind. And we can speak unspoken things with actually a look these days. We can look at each other and know what the other one's thinking. So that constant communication as your life partner and wife or your husband, but also your business partner, that because they have the same levels of trust in business, maybe even a little bit higher, which is weird to say. But so our number 4 is constant communication with in the parentheses, always speak the unspoken.
Gosh, I love that. That was another one that you taught me as well, because I was notorious at holding things in, and you were like my marriage counselor. I feel really bad because I think a lot of the things I've learned about being a good wife and like a good partner in life came from you having to teach me, which is unfortunate for you, but I'm very grateful for it.
It just
But yeah,
means I learned from my bad mistakes in other relationships.
we did both make a lot of mistakes and we learn from it. And that's what makes, I think, our relationship really beautiful. It's a blessing, right? I mean, it's all about redemption. And that's what's so cool is I feel like my story is a story of redemption. Your story is a story of redemption. And together, I think it's reflective of the greater redemptive act of Christ on humanity, all humanity. So, but when you speak of, speaking the unspoken, it goes back to our first tip, which is not saying anything that you regret. Because I think balancing that out, as I was learning to speak up and communicate, it was an adjustment for me to figure out kind of how to stumble. I was stumbling my way into learning how to communicate. I was either holding things in or I was not conveying or communicating it in a way that was healthy. And so I feel like I have been learning and improving on how to communicate in a way that's effective, where there's kind of tools and things that people who are wise in the area of marriage. And again, we're not marriage counselors or anything like that. And we're not trying to prop ourselves up like people who can tell married couples what to do by any means. But something that we have learned through people who are wiser than we are, that there's effective ways to communicate, but it's that balance of holding it all in isn't healthy, exploding on your partner and saying things that you regret and lashing out and reactive mode. All of that is not healthy either, but there's a way to communicate, be open in that communication. Like Jason said, speak the unspoken, but also do it in a way that still respects your husband, or for husbands to love your wives the way that you love yourselves. Then hopefully you don't speak to yourself in such negativity, and you would never want to speak to your wife in that way as well. So that's a really helpful one. Number 5. This one might be a little bit controversial. I believe that it is very important not to get into business with someone that you are not in a marriage level commitment with. And I know that can be controversial. I know many people choose not to be in a marriage level commitment with someone, but the risks and exposure you have by getting into a business together and growing a business together, I just think are way too big in a relationship that you are not in a marriage level commitment in. But I can honestly say that the covenant bond that we have, because we made a commitment and a promise for eternity in the Lord, and I'm not talking about a state marriage contract. I'm talking about a commitment in the Lord, a marital covenant till death do us part. I am committed to my husband until the day that I die and into eternity, whether he likes it or not. No, I'm just kidding. But if I was tied fundamentally in business with him before that, I think it just creates a lot of risk and exposure that's not healthy for the couple that hasn't taken that step to be committed together, or for the business. I just think it creates a lot of exposure. And then if you have employees and staff, we have staff on our teams. And I think it would have put a lot of them at risk if we had made some of the business decisions we made post marriage, pre marriage.
Yeah, I think it's important. I've always said, before ever being married to you, I've always said being in business with someone is tantamount to a marriage anyway. Those of you that have had partnerships and they've gone bad, or you've got partnerships and they went good, which is very, very small. This is why the divorce rate and the failure rate of business partnerships is super, super high, because people don't think it through. They don't look at it like it's that level, that soul level commitment. And I believe, I was, when we talked about this point number 5, I was like, yeah, I think being in business is a marriage of its own kind. And so I feel like Emily and I got married, first in the eyes of the Lord, and then in the eyes of our family, and then in the eyes of our business. And it was kind of those 3 steps for us that we grew in our relationship, and we took things first step, most important for us was to be right in the eyes of the Lord. And then secondly was to celebrate that love and that decision we had already made, between us and the Lord with our family, and then to take that to the next level where everything is intertwined. I love business. Those of you that own your own business, there's literally no separating. When you own your own business, they talk about balance, they talk about putting things in its own. There is no such thing. When you're a business owner 24/7. Just like I'm a husband 24/7, I'm a business owner 24/7, and I know Emily is the same way. We love business. It's our sport. It's our vacation sometimes. It's our challenge. It's the thing that keeps our brains sharp. It's the thing that keeps us, and gives us the ability to give back to the things that we love. It is our network. It is our connection. It is our community, is nothing but a bunch of business owners. And so our wedding was filled, our chairs were filled with our business partners and people that we'd helped and partnered with and consulted for and whatever. That's our life. And so when you get into this level business, number one, again, for married couples, Emily and I are never ever going to do a couples retreat. Just so you know, this is not where this is leading. We're not gonna, but we do know and understand that it takes a unique sort of perspective to be really great in business together as married couples. I've consulted for many businesses that have, uh, wife and husband dynamics, good ones and bad ones. I've actually had to be a marriage consultant a few times in some of the consulting that we've done. But again, I think wrapping up with number 5 is I'm in business with my best friend. She was my best friend before business. She was my best friend before, a lot of the things that we've now built together. She's going to end up being my best friend. That's who I'm taking, and that's the relationship that I'm taking to heaven with me. And that's really all I care about. So losing perspective, in your relationship, and putting anything above it when that's literally going to be the only thing that you have left, that person that I'll be staring at into her eyes, God, as in my last breath, and then I'll be the first piece of person she sees when she gets to heaven. All of that stuff is what matters to me. But here on this earth, we do business together, and we make fun. I'm not about doing anything, with anybody or doing anything that's not fun these days. And so we got that squared away at the beginning. I wanted to be in a great relationship. I wanted Joy to be the home that we live in. And I wanted to be, a family that served the Lord. And I wanted to be a family that served humanity at large. And then I wanted to build a business, that serves other business owners and that helps the community, that changed my life and changed her life. So, that was a lot to say on number five when I really didn't think I had anything to say on number five.
I actually have one more thing. Your husband cannot make you happy. You have to make yourself happy. You have to find joy. If you are miserable and you spend your time gossiping and maligning other people, you think small, you spend your time focusing on things that don't matter. If you're negative, you bring all of that into your business. And something that we teach in the B2X community is that you bring you into your business. And from a woman's perspective, I think a lot of times, and from both perspectives, I'm sure from a man's perspective as well, we might think that our happiness comes from our partner, and it doesn't. I think we have to first, in my opinion, like Jason and I have talked about, as believers, we see first that our first love is the Lord, and so our happiness and joy is rooted there. And every time that I start to set aside alone time with the Lord, I get less and less in prayer. I stop reading the Bible and finding security and joy in those promises that are provided to me every day. Every time I kind of start to go off track from that, I can see how it negatively affects our relationship. I might feel a little bit more insecure that day. I might get a little angrier faster. I might unnecessarily lean too hard on Jason to be my source of happiness when he's not. And I think that's a hard truth that a lot of people don't realize. We put our dependency so fully on our spouse that it is not fair. It's not fair to put that on them. My misery or my joy are the two options that I can bring into our business. And every day we choose joy. Like Jason had mentioned on one of our earlier tips, he gets my best, everyone else gets the rest. We have that written on our refrigerator. The other thing we have written on our refrigerator is, in everything, do it with joy. And I truly believe that can make or break your business and can make or break your relationship with your spouse in business.
Yeah, it's this is one of my favorites because it was one of the first conversations Emily and I had when we very first started dating. I just said, look, because I understand the concept of home. And what I mean by home is that we all have an emotional place that we go to under pressure. I'll say that again. We all have a place that we go to emotionally when put under pressure, not when things are good, not when it's sun shining out. It's when your money's wrong, when the world's against you, when somebody betrays you, when you fail at business, you're having troubles, the economy, the elections, whatever is going on in your life, puts you under pressure, and we have a home. I didn't learn this until, my mid 30s, almost when I turned 40. I didn't learn that lesson until late in life. But when I learned it, it stuck. I went, oh, that home, by the way, is a choice. It's not a choice. It's a reactive place that most people go because we didn't learn this. We're not taught some of the most critical thinking strategies in the world until later, and that's only if you're digging and you're reading books and you're going to seminars and you have made that a commitment in your life to constantly grow personally. And so we don't realize that we're carrying around this emotional home that was created by people who didn't realize they had an emotional home, our parents, our grandparents, our cousins, our sisters, our brothers. And it creates this place that we retreat to under pressure. And for most of us, it's not a positive thing. We go to sadness, we go to regret, we go to fear, we go to places that give us a certainty that's not really necessarily serving us, but it is a place of comfort for us that we put up walls and we put up protections. And so that brings me to the conversation I had with Emily when we very first got together. I said, look, there I will do it. And by the way, I know she says it's not my job to make her happy, but I spend almost all of my waking hours trying to figure out how to make that woman smile. And I love doing it. Now, there's a difference between wanting to add value and inspiration and lift up your partner to being the sole source of their happiness and their joy. Ours comes from the Lord. That's where she leans. She leans into the word. I lean into the word as the leader of the household. And for us, I just told her, I said, look, there's going to be a lot of things that come up in our relationship. We're both, we both come from not perfect families. We both have a lot of things to work through together. I've had some bad relationship. You've had some bad relationship. We got to work all that stuff together. But my home now is joy. That's where I live. That's where I go under pressure. That's where I go under choice. By my choice is to go to joy. And and it was a game changer in our relationship because she had a different home, just like I had a different home. Before I realized this, she had a different home. And the more that she practiced it, now our home is joy. And so no matter what the pressures are that are going around us and happening around us, we have each other, right? We have each other. She gets my best, the world gets the rest. These are not just saying, these are ways of being. These are decisions we've made that are hardwired into our marriage and also reflect into our business life. Those of you that have met us on the road, those of you that will meet us on the road, and that have been with us, we we just love being around each other. We like each other. I was getting love and like mixed up because there's one thing to love your partner and there's another to like them. And I both, Emily. I like and I love her. And we enjoy doing business together and are really we play really well off of each other. And none of that is for social media, none of that's for show. Again, if you've been with us, and it's something that you can't fake. And I think that the point of these tips, if you do nothing from any of the tips but take with you that you get to choose joy as your home to go to under pressure, that's a game changer for you and for your spouse. And if both of you are that's your home, that's where you meet. You meet in joy, right? And everything looks better. It's like waking up after a really nice nap, or waking up and the birds are chirping and the sun's out, because you chose that. You pre-chose that for you and your spouse in your business, especially with the pressures that go on with business. So we hope that's a gift to you. It's been a gift to me, and it's been a gift to Emily, and we've used that as a gift in our marriage and our time together.